Typology endeavor identified with critical thinking examination work on critical thinking, in science, handles this issue as indicated by the targets of these issues, from the point of learning hypotheses, or in any event, as per a typology of these issues. Destinations doled out to critical thinking. Palacio utilizes issue circumstances, which ought not to be mistaken for the instructional method of the task. By rearranging the educational agreement in methods of learning new substance, the instructor puts the student before a conceivably wealthy in the making of numerical instruments, too. Chariot, referred to by Palacio, 2005. In this design, the issue goes before the notional clarification. The goal of issue circumstances is a creation action, and not a propagation action, planning a procedure as opposed to applying one. Look for and not execute, make, examine, integrate, and legitimize. The phases of this sort of cycle are as per the following. Instructor's guidelines, working conditions, explanation, anticipated item, cooperation, fundamental to the learning action. Correspondence, show by the groups of the creations did and the way sought after. Union of the understudies, recording of theoretical and procedural acquisitions. Educator's outline, organization of information. Verschaffel, Greer and DeCourte, 2000, accentuate the benefit of creating metacognitive and heuristic techniques activated at the various phases of the critical thinking measure portrayed by Palacio, Vlasis et al., 2014. Past these two targets, critical thinking stays a special method for the utilization of new information instructed. Hypothetical flows. The numerical critical thinking approach can be drawn nearer from a socio-constructivist point, thinking about critical thinking as an instructive methodology. Issue circumstances, likewise declined in lobbyist model affected by Piagetian constructivism and work in math didactics, and for which the issue turns into the favored method for offering importance to the information educated. Ceresy, 2008. Referred to by De Monte and Fagnant, 2012. In an intellectual methodology, we study critical thinking cycles and goal methodologies, metacognitive, heuristic, Verschaffel and DeCourte, 2008. The impact of intellectual brain science has been reprimanded, now and again firmly, by specific creators, didacticians, dreading a demathematization of instructing as in the critical thinking movement would turn into an action for itself, address for tackle or figure out how to settle. Mercier or Ceresy, referred to by De Monte and Fagnant, 2012. Typology of the actual issues. We can examine the cycles of utilizing critical thinking as indicated by a typology created from that proposed by Charnay in 1992. Open issues, short explanation which doesn't instigate either the strategy or the arrangement, no middle-of-the-road question, which stays in the applied space known to the understudy and permits him to foster more methodological abilities. Research circumstance. Issue circumstances, issues planned to connect with the students in the development of new information, to give meaning. Reinvestment issues, planned to permit the utilization of information previously considered. Application issues, reconciliation issues, planned to permit students to broaden the field of utilization of an idea previously contemplated. Combination issues. The understudies should mutually utilize a few classifications of information, issues making it conceivable to consider the information-dominated assessment, issues which might be open, of the application or combination type, however whose intricacy requires the execution of a numerical displaying approach, including heuristics. Verschaffel, Greer and DeCourte, 2000. A similar assertion may, contingent upon the occasion, contingent upon the understudy's underlying information, can be categorized as one of these classes. Critical thinking, instrumentation and comprehension, a device for learning careful methods. Added substance critical thinking to settle a straightforward option, single-digit numbers, understudies can utilize objects, assortments addressing the amounts to be added, to depend on the fingers, check for all to hear, recuperate the outcome in long-haul memory, established math truth, or decay. To make 5 plus 6, we go through an outcome in memory, similar to 5 plus 5. These last systems, approaching one's drawn-out memory, have a lower intellectual expense in any case, bombing that. The most youthful understudies utilize an assortment of methodology recognized by Baruti, Ginsberg, and Waxman, 1983, referred to by Fayol et al., 2005. Rejoin versus discrete, truly then tally. John had 8 marbles. He gave 5, tally from the primary cardinal gave or from the bigger of the two, check in reverse from or to, match. John has 8 marbles. Tom has 5 marbles. What number of marbles does John have? More than Tom. Critical thinking, an intellectual interaction for de Corte and Verschaffel, 2008. Understudies should foster a psychological interaction that requires composed authority of 5 classifications of intellectual devices, a particular information base, some utilization the thought of disciplinary information. This information, available and coordinated in a rational and adaptable manner, should incorporate current realities, images, calculations, ideas, and rules which comprise the list of chapters of math as a discipline, research procedures in issue circumstances. They essentially increment the likelihood of tracking down a right arrangement, since they actuate an orderly way to deal with the assignment, metacognitive information, realizing how to notice, realizing that how will generally be mindful, realizing how to oversee feelings, realizing how to utilize recollections, realizing how to reason, realizing how to comprehend and learn. Self-guideline procedures, intellectual, inspirational, or cognitive. The cycles associated with the critical thinking action. From the substance of reading material, what occurs in the homeroom, and the overviews did, we notice 2 kinds of exercises related with critical thinking, those which intend to demonstrate and arithmetize circumstances to take care of issues. Relating, and those which rather try to practice schedules of goal, outlines of issues, or even calculations. Gravemeyer, 1997, referred to by Fayol et al., 2005. All the time, issue circumstances are referenced verbally. It is an issue of getting the understudy to stroll based on deficient data, yet from which he will activate his insight to conclude the worth of these questions. Understudies' hardships in critical thinking are because of the intricacy and intelligence of the abilities they need to apply. Correspondingly, instructors are not really better prepared to comprehend the intellectual and metacognitive components at play. Critical thinking techniques and cycles. Taking care of an issue in this manner comprises in summoning, or conjuring, activities and systems related with the issue circumstance. The students are directed to decipher the circumstance soundly and to apply abilities. On the off chance that they can't connect the issue with either an issue of a similar sort or with a known technique, they will build an issue space, which creates an examination space from which endeavors at arrangements are endeavored. Richard, 1997. This exploration space is characterized, in Richard's sense, by the depiction of an underlying state, beginning circumstance, of the objective to be reached, circumstance to be acquired with the goal that the issue is tackled, of the administrator's activities, intends to be carried out, execution, and the imperatives of their application. Restriction of the examination of intellectual cycles. In the event that Barra-Willett and Camus, 2003, indicate that it is thusly important to foster both a superior comprehension of the intellectual cycles engaged with this action and more powerful pedantic procedures than those accessible to us, they additionally underline the trouble of examine intellectual cycles because of the intricacy of the errand to be investigated. For sure, a few models become an integral factor: message appreciation, depiction of the subsequent portrayals, assembly and execution of advanced information. Normally, be that as it may, intellectual brain research treats appreciation of text, thinking and intellectual number juggling independently. Among ideas and methodologies. Taking on one technique over another isn't just with regards to knowledge of some issue. Ideas, definitions, activities meddle in the cycles of understanding. Scientific classification of theoretical information identified with critical thinking. A first scientific categorization, Riley, Greenough and Heller, 1984, in view of activities and tasks, alludes. It recognizes change issues which include the worldly change of an underlying condition of the information and lead to a last state by increment or decline. For instance, John and Tom have 8 marbles together. John has 3 marbles. What number of marbles does Tom have? Mix issues which concern static circumstances, such as, John has 5 marbles, Tom has 3 marbles, and what number of marbles do they have together? Examination problems in which it is an issue of contrasting static circumstances, utilizing definitions of the sort over-under. For instance, John has 3 marbles, Tom has 5 marbles more than John. What number of marbles does Tom have? Critical thinking, an issue of technique in the economy. Multistage verbal number crunching issues, 9, can be tackled by various systems. The inquiry is to realize how these methodologies are developed, or all the more precisely how and why the understudies will pick either technique. Studies on the development of portrayals that lead to this decision are uncommon for grown-ups and surprisingly more so for understudies. We know the job that the plan of the issue, the size of the numbers utilized, yet in addition the singular qualities, working memory limit, experiential abilities, and so on, play in these essential decisions. Then again, we see that people don't look for an elective methodology when they approach a more clear system, regularly proposed by the assertion. The elective procedure may be utilized in case it is less exorbitant intellectually than the underlying methodology. The high intellectual expense of calculation legitimizes the distribution of assets to the execution of a superior technique prone to let loose working memory assets. Thevenot, 2008. Instances of articulations presented to CM2 understudies. The accompanying information: John has 37 balls, J, Tom has 19 balls, T, and Paul has 12 balls, P, are related with one of the 3 inquiries portrayed. Already. The number of marbles do John, Tom and Paul have together? Q1. The number of more marbles do John and Tom have together than Paul? Q2. The number of marbles does John have more than Tom and Paul together? Q3. Contextualize learning. Realities and principles. Countries that best set up their understudies to utilize their insight, in actuality, settings are additionally those whose understudies are generally all right with the intellectual cycles needed in taking care of ordinary issues, for example, associating with new mechanical applications, OECD, 2014a. This sober-minded information, or word issue pattern, WPS, carries out down-to-earth translation measures, which are added to the semantic understanding cycles, Decorte and Verschaffel, 1985. These WPS appear to be gained around the age of 8, Barrow-Willett and Camos, 2003, and are made fundamental by the cliché idea of school issues which are against quantitative issues, all things considered. Multidisciplinary research shows the significance of changing the learning setting on the procurement of learning. Decorte and Verschaffel completed an analysis with CM2 students in Dutch-speaking Belgium. This exploration follows the educational program changes embraced by the Flemish Parliament toward the finish of the 1990s, joined by proposals focusing on the significance of numerical thinking, the capacity to tackle issues, and the materialness of numerical information to circumstances of learning. The Reality, Decorte and Verschaffel, 2008. The point of the examination project was to plan and assess a gadget invigorating the learning system suitable to these goals. The learning setting has been profoundly adjusted in the test classes, in 4 headings. Arithmetize the world, carry reality into the homeroom. Proposing issue circumstances isn't just an issue of applied information or numerical abilities. Nunes and Bryant chipped away at the physical and social arithmetization issues of the world looked by understudies in tricky circumstances talked about in class, Nunes and Bryant, 1996, Nunes et al., 2009. How would you carry reality into the homeroom? By rendering a genuine issue into a school issue, while staying away from over-the-top disentanglements and compelling the understudies to investigate exercises for the important qualities, by contextualizing the issues, in other words by drenching an issue of a cliché type in a genuine circumstance, by incorporating it into a story comprised of ordinary activities. For Barrow-Willett and Camos, 2003, it is important to propose both school issues and genuine issues if by some stroke of good luck since they address both various destinations for the school. Educator and various exercises for understudies. On the instructive level, programs pointed toward rejuvenating issues nearer and carrying reality into the study hall are most likely a way to be investigated, which reacts to Dehaene's desire for science training that doesn't not cut the youngster off from his underlying instincts. Notwithstanding, we should stay wary. From one perspective, it isn't plainly settled that kids essentially reason better with regards to circumstances which are recognizable to them. Applying mathematics to real-life situations, effective or not. For Hattie, in his meta-examination on compelling practices, 2009, such a methodology would have a somewhat adverse consequence, Melissa et al., 2012. In any case, it is a training broadly suggested in Europe, either for reasons of productivity in learning, or to plan for grown-up life. The TIMSS 2007 shows that, as indicated by educators, it is normal approached understudies to set up a connection among math and regular day-to-day existence. This is the situation for 60% of understudies in 4th year of grade school, also 50% of the course. This connection between day-to-day existence and science exercises appears to be more subtle to students, in any case, since, again in the 2007 TIMSS review, 39% of understudies allude to it contrasted with 53% of instructors. We can subsequently puzzle over whether this distinction in insight isn't because of an absence of clarification with respect to the instructors, Melissa et al., 2012. In 1975, Ada composed that many inquiries put to kids in number-related exercises could be considered by them to be conundrums. As far as she might be concerned, educators counter the inherent deliberation of arithmetic by offering understudies substantial circumstances. Nonetheless, this substantial arithmetic is a factor of errors or misconceptions, due both to poorly characterized settings or to the utilization of words expected to dress the numerical issue, improving for the instructor, however more convoluted for the understudy. For a lot of understudies, there stays an issue of interpretation, of move to an issue of a similar sort. Numerous mistaken assumptions are expected to these circumstances to be mathematized regularly, imagined for cover, conceal math. The craft of making practices converges with the specialty of making what is basic convoluted. Ada, 1975. Brishid, 2007, cites Vygotsky, who separates critical thinking into two sorts: Q issues, which influence day-to-day existence, and E issues, E as everyday life, which are just tackled by understudies who have gone to class, having figured out how to do activities. For every one of the fundamental kinds of school issues, which, on schedule, should be addressed by deduction, increase or division, it is conceivable, by changing just the mathematical qualities, to create Q issues which are genuinely effective before any educating of these activities, and E issues for which the disappointment is gigantic before this instructing. Brishid, 2007. Educational systems create practices whose goal is unequivocally the methodical learning of the goal of specific issues, and whose structures and substance are firmly generalized.